Raise the voting age to 25. Yes, that's what a Republican candidate for president said, or rather, that's what he started with. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is another declaration of truth from your host, Terry A. Hurlbut. Last week, a single-digit candidate made this provocative statement that Americans have forgotten civic virtue. And so, perhaps for the first time in history, a candidate for the highest office in the land proposed a radical step to ensure that civic virtue will return to politics. To do that, Vivek G. Ramaswamy proposes amending the Constitution to raise the voting age to 25. But that is actually an incentive for young people to demonstrate civic virtue for the privilege of voting earlier than that. Before I dive into his proposal, the reaction to it, and a comparison to a certain work of science fiction that described a similar system, I do want to shout out to the prime sponsor of this channel, which is Conservative News and Views. Link in the description. And be sure to check out the awesome CNAV store. Scroll down near the bottom for that link. Lots of great merchandise there, especially this t-shirt that I've chosen for today, which depicts several obvious soldiers in silhouette with a grainy-looking American flag in the background and this caption, "Freedom isn't free." One more thing. If you like what you're about to hear, you can like this video. You can also subscribe to my channel if you're using a desktop or a laptop or the Rumble app on a mobile device. So, let's get ready to rumble! First, the $1,024,000 question. Who is Vivek G. Ramaswamy? Vivek Ganapathy Ramaswamy, 37, might be the youngest person ever to seek the office of President of the United States. He is the son of two well-educated parents from India. Presumably, they were naturalized citizens before Vivek was born. He holds a bachelor's degree from Harvard College and a law degree from Yale Law School. So he might be young, but he is well qualified for the office. More to the point, he has two major publishing credits. They are Woke Inc., that's as in Incorporated, Inside Corporate America's Social Justice Scam, Center Street Publishers, August 2021, and Nation of Victims, Identity Politics, The Death of Merit, and the Path Back to Excellence, Center Street Publishers, September 2022. A month before publishing his first book, he published an op-ed in Newsweek protesting the Church of Wokeness and how it affects the workplace. When he entered the 2024 Republican presidential nomination race, he said Donald Trump hadn't gone far enough with his American First agenda. He has tweeted prolifically on Twitter, so his positions are easy to tease out. I have links in the description to 12 of his tweets in just the last 36 to 48 hours. I'll sum them up as follows. We are not ancient Rome or even more ancient Carthage, so we don't have to consider ourselves in decline. Interesting, that "we" part. His parents might not be natural-born American citizens, but I assume that they're naturalized, and he has definitely embraced American citizenship in his own right. He would shut down the Department of Education and stop them from forcing local schools to adopt what he calls a toxic race and gender ideology. Now here's a video of him accusing Wall Street of colluding with the left to produce this wokeness idea. He has two tweets against our involvement in Ukraine. One, because Biden seems to be working at cross purposes, and two, at the end, because we've got too many problems of our own to go gallivanting to other parts of the world to solve theirs. He sets two foreign policy priorities: independence from China and smashing the Mexican drug cartels through military force if necessary. He wants to emphasize more vocational training and respect for vocationally trained persons in the clear recognition that not everyone can or even should go to college. As to China, he says, we thought our money would make the Chinese more like us, and the Chinese work to make us more like them. We need, he says, to rediscover what America is before we know what it means to put America first. And when it comes to being pro-life, he wants to facilitate adoption and make sure that fathers take responsibility for the children they sire, and not just financial responsibility. I now come to his Civic Virtue Amendment proposal. Now here's the straight dope on that. On Wednesday afternoon, Ramaswamy left a tweet discussing the military recruitment deficit and the lack of national pride on the part of Generation Z. I have a link in the description. Briefly, we have a 25% military recruitment deficit, and only 16% of members of Generation Z have any pride in America. And in this tweet, he teased up a proposal for a constitutional amendment. He didn't say, he gave no further details. That evening, he gave an interview to Fox News discussing that proposed amendment. We have not seen a detailed draft, but he gave the gist to Mr. Houston Keene at Fox. His proposal entails 1. Repeal of Amendment 26, the one setting the universal voting age at 18. 2. Establishing a general minimum voting age of 25. And 3. Providing 2 pathways for persons 18 through 24 to get their voting rights earlier. These pathways are either 1. A 6-month term of service in either the military or in some emergency first response capacity, including law enforcement, or 2. Passage of the same civics test that naturalization applicants must pass to become citizens. The idea is not to require everyone to serve, but to require a civic duty function in order to vote, or at least to require that before the age of 25. At age 25, that falls away, he said. Ramaswamy repudiated any comparison of his proposal to the Jim Crow segregation laws in the South and elsewhere after Reconstruction. There is no room for funny business with his proposal, he said. The original Amendment 26 set a precedent for tying civic duties to the privilege of citizenship. Back then, the draft existed, so Amendment 26 eliminated any ground to charge discrimination against the young. The problem is, the draft went away, but the voting age stayed at 18. Now, before I tell you what Mr. Ramaswamy said and did next, and the reaction he got, I want to shout out to a sponsor who can really help you through the economic storms to come. That sponsor is oursilverlines.com. You feel like you're working harder for your money just to get by? You are not alone. Fluctuating economy, employment issues, and unexpected changes in life have left many families struggling over the past few years. Collecting gold and silver can help shield you against many of these challenges. But if you're like me many years ago, you don't know where or how to start. Our Silver Lines helps by connecting you with thousands of members who are learning the secrets to creating and protecting true wealth by collecting precious metals. Whether you just want to collect rare and unique coins or take advantage of the business opportunities this company provides, either way, they can help you learn to live an exceptional life. Visit oursilverlines.com to learn how you can build a legacy to your future. Now, Ramaswamy outlined his proposal at a public rally in Iowa the next day. That would be Thursday. At 8:05 p.m. Thursday, he dropped his proposal on Twitter, just as he had explained it on Fox. I have a link to his tweet in the description, and to Charlie Kirk's direct reply to it in which he supported it. Basically, he wants young people to have skin in the game, which he says they do not. Later that night, Ramaswamy shared an interesting, in fact a touching video of the youngest attendee at his Iowa rally expressing a willingness to abide by the proposed new rule to get his own vote. I have a link in the description to that first video. And then to the one he released the next morning, expanding on that incident. Then I have links to 3 more tweets in which he expanded further on the importance of civic virtue in voting. He said, young people no longer value a country, they simply inherit. It's something I've noticed. He reminds people that the Constitution does not expressly guarantee to anyone a right to vote, only that certain grounds for the denial of it are inadmissible, which is not the same thing. And he mentioned that you cannot force civic virtue on someone who doesn't have it and doesn't understand it. Newsweek gathered a sample of reactions, both pro and con. I have links in the description to 3 pros and 4 cons, the last 2 being part of a thread. On the pro side, people think about how simple it would be to teach a course leading to passing of that citizenship qualifying test. Someone else pointed out that to get civic virtue, you need to lead young people along the civic path. Now, the cons all made the same pitch, that Ramaswamy's proposal was a means by which to suppress the youth vote. The last 2 tweets I have are from a thread from one calling himself the youngest Biden delegate. In direct reply to him, another user left a tweet, link in the description, saying, if Republicans are afraid of Generation Z, then it is because they do not know civics or history nearly as well as they should before they make decisions that will affect other people. That last user understands an admittedly crude distinction between those having civic virtue and those lacking it. Briefly, when you are young, if you are not on the left, you have no heart. But as you get older, if you do not at the same time move right, you have no brain. Which in turn leads to this truism: no one is born with civic virtue, any more than the other virtues. Civic virtue, like all other virtue, requires education and training. Sadly, American society does not offer such training any longer. Civics is a neglected subject in middle and high school today. Nor does any middle or high school student read any of the great literature that teaches civic virtue. Let me suggest this reading list: de Tocqueville, Alexis, Democracy in America. 2. De Vattel, Emmerich, The Law of Nations. And 3. Skousen, W. Cleon, The 5,000-Year Leap, a Miracle That Changed the World. De Tocqueville is especially instructive. He said, quote, the American Republic will endure until the day Congress discovers that it can bribe the public with the public's money. Close quote. Which is what we see happening today. Furthermore, the reaction to Ramaswamy's ideas about civic virtue splits along party and left-right lines. Remarkably, reaction among the very young does not. Ramaswamy seemed to think that the younger anyone was, the better he liked his proposals, at least before the age of 18. I would now like to call your attention to an alternative proposal. The late Robert A. Heinlein made a comprehensive civic virtue proposal of his own, similar to Ramaswamy's, but not identical. This appeared in his 1959 novel, Starship Troopers. Heinlein did not propose any age at which one would automatically win the vote by default. That default voting age of 25 is just that, a default. It probably has its basis in the old draft system, under which 25 was the maximum draft age. Nor did Heinlein call for a civics test, though he did propose that a course that he called History and Moral Philosophy be part of the high school curriculum, and require that only a qualified citizen teach it. The idea is to teach history through an explicitly moral lens. To qualify for voting citizenship, Heinlein proposed a minimum 2-year term in military or other life-on-the-line service, except law enforcement. Law enforcement is part of running the state, but Heinlein would gladly accept any emergency first response service lacking the power of arrest as qualifying service. And we're talking fire protection and emergency medical response. Unlike ancient Athens, Heinlein believed that those who enforce the law must be qualified citizens, not municipal slaves. Now, of course, not everyone can qualify for military or emergency first response service. So any proposal to reserve the vote to those who prove themselves must invent other ways to earn the vote. Ramaswamy proposes a written test, the same test applicants for naturalization take. Heinlein proposed a dizzying variety of alternative services, having some risk of life in common, but the basic principle that the ultimate risk for the ultimate privilege remains the same. The objections to Ramaswamy's civic virtue proposal have their basis in entitlement, not the earning of a privilege. Entitlement is, of course, the basis for most of the left's program. But the problem with entitlement is that someone else must furnish the things to which the left teaches their clients to feel entitled. Such are the politics of envy, not the politics of civic virtue. Again, recall de Tocqueville's warning along this very line. I don't expect the Ramaswamy plan to pass. After all, Ramaswamy does not command more than 5% of Republican voters, if that. But his proposal gives rise to constructive thought on the part of any who can still think. Links in the description of the article to the 12 tweets by Vivek Ramaswamy laying out his political positions, to his tweet teasing up his amendment proposal, to that amendment proposal and Charlie Kirk's immediate reaction, to 5 tweets by Ramaswamy following up, as I said above, to the 3 pro and 4 con tweets, to yet another user's reaction to my Declarations of Truth Twitter account and to Conservative News and Views. I've also left links to the awesome CNAV store and to oursilverlines.com, as I also mentioned. You know already about how to like and share this video and subscribe to this channel. And don't hesitate to leave a comment. Tell me what you think. Is the Ramaswamy plan viable? Would you like to live in a society having it? This is Terry A. Hurlbut delivering another declaration of truth and reminding you to let the truth set you free.